Welcome to Jammin Classics. Today with me is an icon of the concert industry, and it's Bob Alexander. Bob, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm today the president of the Palm Springs and Las Vegas Walk of Stars, and I founded the Motion Picture Hall of Fame. But in 100 years of filmmaking, there's never been a Motion Picture Hall of Fame, and I saw the niche and I founded it. I was actually born in Virginia, and I lived there until I was about 11 years old, and my father sent me to California. I fell in love with the motion picture industry and the music business, so much so that I was sent back to North Carolina, where I went to school for a couple of years. And I actually went down and registered. A gentleman told me how I could get in the Army. So I went down and registered at 14 as though I was 18, and I volunteered for the draft at 14. I was actually drafted and inducted into the military 1 week after I turned 15. I ended up with the 101st Airborne, where I made 47 jumps, and today I'm a disabled veteran, and the VA has treated me fantastic, I might add. But along the way, I wanted to be a singer, and I was in the military with a great singer by the name of Ben E. King. And Benny King really whetted my appetite for the music industry, and so when I got out of the military, I moved to Hollywood. And so I immediately tried to become a singer. I was able to get a record contract and put out a few records, no hits, but I was able to generate a lot of airplay by going around and calling on the radio stations as a record promoter. So I decided to move to Nashville to centrally locate, and I met a gentleman who was with Holiday on Ice. And it was really a turning point in my life. He had skated with the great Sonia Henney, and he was the only person in the world at that time that could tap dance on ice. Anyway, his name was Johnny Brett, and he also wanted to be a playwright, and he was a great songwriter. So at the time, I had heard about a lady by the name of Audrey Williams in Nashville, and Audrey was married to the late great Hank Williams and the mother of Hank Williams Jr. She had started a motion picture company called Marathon Pictures, and I called her and went down to Nashville to meet with her, and I had a script called 9 Wives, and she liked it. And she said, "You know, Bob, a good friend of mine has just signed a contract with MGM. He left Monument, and part of his contract as a singer is he has a contract to do motion pictures. His name is Roy Orbison. And Roy had the #1 record in the world called Pretty Woman." Well, she called Roy and sent me out to his house in Hendersonville. And Roy and I talked for a couple of hours. I left my script, the play, with him. And he said, "Get back to me within a week." So in a week I called Roy, and he said, "You know, Bob, I don't like your script for me, but I noticed that you have a vast knowledge of the music industry. Have you ever thought of being a concert promoter?" And I said, "Well, I certainly would know how to do that. I promoted records, and why don't you give me some dates, Roy?" So he gave me several dates, and the tickets were $1.75 in advance, $2.25 at the gate, and Roy only charged me $2,000 with the #1 record in the world. So all of my concerts with Roy and a group called the New Beats were all sellouts. So I worked with Roy for quite a while, and Roy had a couple of major tragedies in his life. One, his wife was killed. She slid underneath a semi-truck and was decapitated, and 2 of his sons were killed in a house fire, an explosion. They were playing with matches in the basement, and ignited the furnace, and it killed two of his sons. So anyway, Roy didn't work for quite a while, and so I continued to promote concerts. I did a lot of concerts. The Righteous Brothers, Jan and Dean, the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars. We had everybody from Herman's Hermits, Tom Jones, the Supremes. It was a great life, and I thoroughly loved it and enjoyed it. And I did that all over the Midwest. I did a lot of different festivals. I promoted everybody that you could think of almost, from Rod Stewart and the Doors, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, on, and the Doobie Brothers. I also did a show called Entertainment Las Vegas Style, out of Las Vegas, with Charo as the host, with Tony Saka. We had artists such as the Smothers Brothers, Billy Ray Cyrus, Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers, Mary Wilson from the Supremes, and I can't remember all the acts, but it was a great show on PBS called Entertainment Las Vegas Style. One of the first records I cut was called The Fortune Teller. Right here it is, framed, a 45. Here I am, very young. I had promoted Sly and the Family Stone. I got into artist management for a while and got real lucky. I had a group that backed up Waylon Jennings, and it was called the Kimberleys. They were a family group. They had 5 top 10 records, and they won a Grammy Award for the song in the country field called MacArthur's Park. Then I tried my hand at television album production, and I produced Ferranti Teicher in grand style. And I also had Jimmy Rogers, Honeycomb, Kisses Sweeter Than Wine. It was called Honey Hits. In 1988, I decided to move from Nashville back to California. So I had whetted my appetite for producing television shows. And I produced Rock Around the Clock, a game show. I produced The Beat Goes On, The Garlic Roast, Tell All Your Stinking Friends.
Coming to you from Southern California's famous desert oasis, the Palm Springs Walk of Stars presents The Garlic Roast. Tell all your stinking friends. It's the roast with a twist. And here's your roast master, the father of fractured phrases, Norm Crosby.
I just need 2 words to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mickey Rooney. You know, we don't honor Mickey tonight because he's a great actor, singer, dancer, or comedian. We honor him by special request from him.
I met a gentleman on the phone by the name of Bill Beck, who is a former Marlboro man in Nashville. And anyway, I decided to come out to California. He told me that he could finance a game show that I had called Rock Around the Clock. So I came out and met Bill, and we've been friends now for 30 years. And I did a number of TV shows, and I love the television business. But anyway, I've always had a love for the concert business, and when I got to a certain age, I decided to come down to Palm Springs, California, and I heard about a show here called The Follies. So I decided to put together a show called Sinatra My Way with my good friend Frankie Randall and Pat Rizzo. So we did 150 shows at the Annenberg Theater. It was a great show, 30 members in the cast. Through that experience, I met a gentleman by the name of Gerhard Frenzel, and Gerhard had founded the Palm Springs Walk of Stars. And he was my next door neighbor, and he said, "Bob, you have a lot of knowledge about the entertainment industry, and I need a president of the Palm Springs Walk of Stars." So 16 years ago, he made me the president, and I have now done about 180 stars here. Along the way, I founded the Las Vegas Walk of Stars, and the love of my life has been to honor the greatest stars and films of all time, and let the ultimate critic, the public, vote on who gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. My goal is to build the Hall of Fame motion pictures here in Palm Springs. I currently have a building in downtown Palm Springs of 16,400 square feet. One of the highlights of my career in the concert business, in 1972, it was 3 years after Woodstock, and I decided to promote a huge festival, 3 days. Tickets were only $20 in advance and $30 at the gate. And I booked some of the biggest acts at that time that were working. Rod Stewart and the Faces, Joe Cocker, Black Sabbath, Cheech and Chong, the Allman Brothers, the Doors, Canned Heat, Fleetwood Mac, Ravi Shankar, the Eagles, Doobie Brothers, on and on. 2 months before that, I had really whetted my appetite by booking Ike and Tina Turner. Ike and Tina were the headliners, and I had 30,000 people, and I made $150,000 in one day. And I'd never made anything like that before in my life. And so, I took the whole family to Jamaica for a week and really lived it up. So I came back and I immediately went to work on a festival. I call it the Erie Canal Soda Pop Festival. Well, 3 days before the event, the state got an injunction and we were forced to move the event. Well, there were already about 50,000 people in a town called Evansville, Indiana, camped out. Well, I met a gentleman that was a judge in Southern California and Southern Illinois, and he fined me $20,000 and issued me a permit on an island called Bull Island. It was about 1,000 acres, and I had almost 300,000 people. 2 babies were born and 2 people died, unfortunately. But it became the news story of the year that year, all over America. And it took me about 9 years to fight the lawsuits. I finally won. I did a Latin music festival in New York City, Randall's Island Downing Stadium, called Super Salsa 75 with Tita Puente, La Lupe, El Gran Combo. I lived in Kingston, Jamaica for 1.5 years, and Neil Diamond had a huge record at that time called Hot August Night. So I borrowed the name and I called it the event Hot August Night from Jamaica. And I had acts like James Brown, Isaac Hayes, Stevie Wonder, Mighty Sparrow, Bob Marley, and the Wailers, Jimmy Cliff. About 2 months before that event, the government nationalized and said that you could only take $60 a day out in foreign exchange. So my backers said, Bob, we love Jamaica, but not enough to leave our money there. So the event was canceled. I did a festival in Columbia, Tennessee called the Electric Cowboy Festival. I had 70,000 people there. In 1983, I met a gentleman who was a former pro football player by the name of Bam Webster. And I told him about what I was looking for, and that would be a site where I could get a permit to do a 3-day rock festival. And he said, well, I can do that for you. And I said, well, it has to come from the governor, you know. I know the governor real well, he said. So anyway, for a certain amount of dollars, he was able to secure a 3-day permit. And I booked acts like Joe Walsh, Molly Hatchet, Quiet Riot, Joan Jett, Cheap Trick, Greg Kinn, Madness, In Excess, Mitch Ryder, Blackfoot, Quarterflash, Marshall Tucker Band, The Outlaws, Leon Russell, Greg Allman, Johnny Van Zant, on and on. Wolfman Jack was my host for 3 days. I got to hang out with the Wolfman. Anyway, it was great. It was called the Electric Cowboy Festival. A major event in Nashville every year that's been going on for years. It's called Fanfare. Well, I decided to put together a West Coast version of that at Pomona, and we called it Fan Fest. We booked the Pomona Fairgrounds, and our first 2 years the event was called, or was voted, the Country Music Event of the Year. And we had acts like Billy Ray Cyrus, Joe Diffie, Tammy Wynette, Red Akins, Ken Millens, Kenny Chesney, Tracy Lawrence, Jerry Springer, the talk show host, Ricky Skaggs, Confederate Railroad, Jeff Foxworthy, Martina McBride, Rick Trevino, Toby Keith, Doug Supernaw, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Jeff Carson, and on and on. And all of these gold records here were signed by the performers. And as I said, it was named the Country Music Event of the Year 2 years in a row. When I first came, well, I hadn't actually moved to Palm Springs, but I worked with a company called Concerts West. Tom Hewlett became my partner. Tom Hewlett was one of the biggest concert promoters in the world. His partner was Jerry Weintraub. And Jerry Weintraub, when he left to become a great film producer, took his place. Anyway, because of that, I was able to meet the Beach Boys. And so we had the Beach Boys in Palm Desert, California, at College of the Desert. Had about 10,000 people. A great event. So I decided to move to Palm Springs, and as I said earlier, did a great show with Frankie Randall and Pat Rizzo called Sinatra My Way. We had 30 members in the cast, beautiful showgirls, and a gentleman out of Chicago gave me $700,000, and we lost it all. But because I had a publicly traded company at the time, I gave him 1 million shares of stock, and he got the entire $700,000 back, plus another $1 million from the sale of his stock. I decided to do a couple of PBS television shows. One was called Latin Music Legends. Mark Guerrero worked with me from the very beginning on booking the artists. Trini I had known for quite a while, but anyway, we booked artists through Mark, such as El Chicano, Tierra, the Midnighters with Little Willie G, Greg Rowley with the Greg Rowley Band. Greg is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with both Journey and Santana.
Muy agüitao, estás pute atravesado. Antes se bailaba el swing, boogie woogie jitterbug, pero eso ya torció, y esto es lo que sucedió. Los chucos suaves bailan rumba, bailan la rumba y le zumba, bailan guaracha sabrosón, el botecito y el danzón. Los chucos suaves bailan rumba, bailan la rumba y le zumba, bailan guaracha sabrosón, el botecito y el danzón.
All right, everybody, what a great audience. Thank you. All right, everybody, I want to invite all the guys in this show, all the artists that were here tonight, all these great Latino legends to come and join me. Keep singing this song. Yeah, guys. Yeah! muchachita, muy bonita. All right, do it, guys, do it. Yo no soy marinero, yo no soy marinero, soy capitán, soy capitán, soy capitán. Ay, la bamba, ay, la bamba, ay, la bamba, ay, la bamba. Para subir al cielo, se necesita una escalera grande, otra chiquita, arriba y arriba. Ay, arriba y arriba, por ti seré, por ti seré, por ti seré. Do it, everybody.
Wow, Bob, that was quite a historical life that you had with all of these wonderful shows and concerts you used to do. How can people reach you?
I can be reached, Motion Picture Hall of Fame, phone number 760-218-8897. Email address is moviehall@aol.com. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Bob. And thanks for watching.
Outside of town, by the side of the road and plain to see, stood a quaint little house with a sign out in front that said Madame Marie. When I pulled up by the sign I saw, fortunes are rich. I walked in, the fortune teller said,